Good evening and welcome to the Chrissy B Show. On tonight's show, we will be discussing the internet and social networking sites and the impact that they have had on people, and also are people changing how they develop relationships and how they maintain them as well. So just to let you know, the guests that we have on tonight, we have Zoe Cunningham, technology expert, and we also have Eva Keegan, a social media business owner. And later on as well, we're going to be speaking to dating expert Andy Jones. And as always on Mondays, we have Chris Brown with us with a self-development clinic, and he's brought on a very special guest of his own, so we'll be meeting him a bit later on. But first, let's speak to Lisa Marie. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Chrissy.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
And it was your birthday yesterday, wasn't it?
It was.
Happy birthday in front of everyone.
You. Thanks.
We'll sing to you later. Okay, I'll be waiting. So you have some news for us?
I do. I mean, well, before we go on to things that actually relate to the topic, just a little bit of news that came up yesterday. I mean, today. And this is a good tip. You know, don't discount car boot sales ever, because you never know what treasures you can find. Because there was a watch worn when Sean Connery was James Bond, and it's from the hit movie Thunderbolt, and it had gone missing. So some lucky person picked it up at a car boot sale for £25. Relative bargain, because it is going on auction at Christie's in London, and the estimated price is £60,000. So somebody is very, very, very lucky indeed, I would say.
Well, I did something not similar. Well, I suppose it's similar, but on a much lesser scale, because I went to a car boot sale once. I wanted to get rid of some stuff for charity, and I forgot that this ring was white gold, and I sold it for 10p, and I only remembered after I'd sold it. So I was like gutted after. I thought, no, why did I do that?
Yeah, that person was very lucky.
Yeah, they were. The guy, I was wondering why he was so intrigued, and he was like looking at it. I was like, okay, and then I realised afterwards.
Oh dear. Oh yeah. Well, at least it was for charity.
Yes.
So going on talking about celebrities, then, that they are taking too much advantage of Twitter. We know that's the one thing that can actually get people into a lot of trouble, because once it's out there in the Twitter sphere, you can't take it back, as some of these celebrities have found out. So we have Jessica Wright, who is a TOWIE star. The Only Way is Essex, for people maybe who've been living under a rock and don't know what that is. She found herself trending on Twitter in December 2011 for all of the wrong reasons. When North Korean dictator Kim Jong-il died, she gave her deep felt condolences by tweeting "rest in peace," and we're pretty sure she didn't expect the backlash she was about to receive, but obviously he was a well-known dictator, and everyone else wasn't too happy about what she wrote. Russell Brand is another one. When he was married to Katy Perry, he found himself in her bad books by doing what women only do. It's only okay for a woman to do this if it's her choice. Men, never take a picture of your wife or girlfriend, significant other, without makeup and put it on Twitter. No. And that's what he did. And he said it was an innocent mistake. How innocent? I don't know, but yeah.
I'm sorry, but some men don't think about things like that. We're sort of a bit obsessed with that, but I do believe sometimes that it could be innocent.
See, well, I think that men know what women are like about not having like makeup on, and you know how long we take to get ready and things like that. And whenever, for example, I'm posing for a picture, I know it's going on Facebook, you know, you're making sure hair's all done, everything's right. To put it on there on Twitter with her millions of followers and his millions of followers, it was always going to trend, always going to go around the world. Don't do it. Piers Morgan, I think he's been in Twitter spats with just about everyone and anyone. I think with Rio Ferdinand, Lord Sugar, so many people. But he was the one that blatantly ignored the rule that when everyone knew that it was Ryan Giggs that had the gagging order, and it was on. It was all over the internet, all over Twitter, and etc. But he was the one who said, "I'm ignoring that rule and put it out there anyway." But for him, I mean, everyone else knew, but he didn't get into as much trouble as he could have done. But he's had lots of spats. I think the most recent one was with Michael Owen as well. Professor Green, who is dating, or not dating, he's engaged to Made in Chelsea's Millie McIntosh. He got involved, and again, I don't know well, maybe he's running to his fiance's aid, but she was having a Twitter spat with somebody else. It got a little bit nasty because the girls were, they had a very awkward spa day apparently, and Victoria, who is also another star on Made in Chelsea, she said how much that she would like to slap Millie McIntosh. Don't know why. But then Professor Green decided to get involved and saying, did I just see a horse say it would like to slap Millie? Apologies, I'm nowhere near as dignified as the other half when it comes to these situations. I call a spade or a horse a horse.
Oh dear.
And Victoria promptly quit back. Surprising you know what a horse looks like at Professor Green. Not many of those roaming around the Hackney estates, darling. Carried on for a little bit longer, but eventually a truce was called. She apologised, and it all seems to.
That's the thing. Where'd you stop once someone starts like this? Where'd you stop? It just goes on and on for the whole world to see if they want to.
Exactly, and it's all out there on Twitter. So no matter how many times people retract and say sorry, by that time it's usually too late because it's all the way around the world. Everyone's seen it. Everyone's heard it. How can you take it back? Ashton Kutcher, he was the one, he made a real bit of a mistake, a faux pas on Twitter when he came to the defence of Joe Paterno, who was a coach in America, and he was using Twitter to express his anger, saying, you know, how can they fire him? How dare they do this? Until he realised that he was actually fired because he was on trial for sexual abuse charges of a minor. And it was no surprise that after that, Ashton Kutcher decided to relinquish the control of his Twitter account to his management for obvious reasons. Spike Lee, and this I think is one where some celebrities can use their celebrity and their fame in a negative way, because he got quite heavily involved in the Trayvon Martin tragedy, and this is still ongoing in the States. So this was the case of George Zimmerman, who ended up shooting Trayvon Martin, and as I said, it's still going on. George Zimmerman was saying that he was using his rights as he felt threatened, someone was coming onto his property and end up shooting him. But as I said, it's still ongoing. But what Spike Lee did is he tweeted the address of what was supposed to be George Zimmerman's house, and he has millions of followers. The problem was that address did not belong to George Zimmerman and was actually an address... him. Address of David and Elaine McLean, who a Florida couple whose son was coincidentally named William George Zimmerman, and the couple had to flee their home because they were besieged by people wanting to take vigilante justice and all of this kind of thing. In fact, what actually happened, Spike Lee had to compensate the couple for the disruption outside of court and settled. So yes, serves him right. Who told him to get involved?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lisa.
No
so
problem.
let's introduce our first experts of tonight. We have Zoe and Eva with us. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Great,
Can you tell us what you each do, first of all?
So I'm Zoe Cunningham. I'm a managing director of a bespoke software agency, and that means that we make systems for businesses. So maybe for a small company, that might be a system that runs their entire business, or for a larger company, a part of a larger system.
Okay, and how about you?
I'm Eva Keegan, and I have a couple of businesses, one of which is called Home of Social, and I train people how to use social media. So it could be anything from an 80-year-old through to parents of school children. And that means I've been working with actors and authors and a lot of women who are actually setting up businesses right now. And I'm also a blogger.
Right. Okay, so with this topic, we're going to be speaking about obviously how technology and social media do affect us and how things have changed over the years. First of all, in your line of work, how has the internet and social media been helping you both?
Do you want to start?
Well, 5 years ago, my kind of job didn't exist, neither did what I do really. So it's been a completely life-changing experience and something that I find really exciting. I've met loads of really interesting people. I've got new friends that I've discovered through Twitter and blogging, and yeah, it's a whole industry that's burgeoning at the moment, so it's a really good time.
Okay, how about you?
I think what's mostly changed is the cost of everything has come down so much. So large companies have always, or for a long time, have had pieces of software that can run their businesses. But now, even if you're a small business owner, you can still get access online to the kind of professional software that you wouldn't have been able to afford otherwise.
Okay, so tell us a bit more about the technology now, Zoe. So how has it actually changed recently, and how is it helping people? Because we're going to get to the sort of the downside of things as well, even though you probably don't want to talk about it that much, but obviously people have to be aware of the pros and the cons, and to make sure, you know, that they've got balance in some sense.
Well, let's start with the upside, because I think if you are a small business, there isn't very much downside. I suppose there's a lot more competition now, so that obviously people are very aware of competition overseas, and the internet makes that easier. But you have access to so much more. So outside of my software job, I've actually set up a business for networking for people who work in technology. So I'm actually in the position of being a small business as well as working for a larger one. And in that business, I use an online mailing service and an online event management service. And these are both services that are free to use if you're when you're starting out, but you get access to the same software. It's called a kind of freemium model. So you're getting the same software. You're not getting software that it's not free because someone's just put it together in their bedroom. You're getting the actual software you would pay for. They're kind of trying to tempt you into it.
Yeah, okay. And so what about, okay, you spoke about sort of the upside. What about sort of the maybe one little downside to things, would you say? Or would you say there's none?
I don't think from a business point of view, because the way business progresses is by things getting cheaper. And the difficult thing with business is that one person's loss is someone else's gain. So, for example, if you can get cheap European imports or cheap European labour, then that might be an issue if you wanted to work in that area. But actually it's a win for everyone else because prices come down.
Right, okay, then we're going to go to a quick break, and then we're going to speak more to you both, because you've got a few things to show us as well. But if you want to get in touch and ask a question, give us a call on 020 7686 6300. You can also tweet at Chrissy B Show. So join us after this.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back. So let's talk gadgets and apps now with our experts. So you have something to show us here, don't you?
Well, what's so cool nowadays is that you can use your smartphone for almost anything, and that's another way that costs are coming down for small businesses. So you can get little gadgets that look like this, and this allows you to turn your smartphone into a card reader. So rather than using an expensive card reader, you've always been able to buy expensive point of sale systems. Now you just put this gadget in, and if I'm, say, the owner of a handbag store, I usually have to take cash, but instead I can use this phone. I can take the customer's credit card into my phone. I can ring up what they're buying, they enter their PIN number, and bang.
It's so easy.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Wow, that's really good. That saves time and money and all sorts of things.
Yeah, and it allows you often to make a sale that you wouldn't otherwise have made if people don't have cash.
Yeah, okay. See, opportunities, opens doors for opportunities. And what about some apps as well?
Well, a couple of years ago, I would have been carrying around loads of equipment, so it's great having apps on small devices. So I am a real heavy Twitter user. I've got about 4,000 followers, which is not the celebrity number that everybody's looking for, but keeps me connected and in touch. And I love using it, and I blog on the go using my smartphone or my tablet. And the two apps that I'm really excited about at the moment are, one's called Vine, and basically it's like a mini YouTube. So you will film something that's 5 seconds long and upload it and share it on Twitter. And loads of people, like actors and actresses in Hollywood, are using it at the moment to get it off the ground. And the other one I really like is #music. And it lets you just discover new music online and share it with your followers. So it's a completely new way of finding music that's not kind of like owned by the big corporates quite yet. So.
Wow, great. Got any more?
One for the ladies, Pinterest, which is, a lot of people are using it already, and they tend to call it Pininterest, which is a slight misnomer. But basically, it's a virtual pin board. So if you see something you like online and you want to capture it, you have a little kind of, it's literally a pin, and you clip it to a board. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So that's
I
really
have been on there and I did register, but I sort of went on it once and then I kind of lost interest. I don't know why.
Well,
I need to get
you
into
may
it.
be
It's
alone
quite
there.
good.
You might have to try it again. So that's really good. And I think, you know, the wonderful thing is that we've got things like YouTube. This week is Comedy Week on YouTube. So there's loads of free stuff to watch and have a giggle, more importantly.
But how would you say, because I know sometimes we can get go a bit over the top with apps, and there's so many things that, you know, we can download and use, and it gets quite hard to sort of control ourselves sometimes. What would you say about that, ladies? Because it's tempting to just be on the computer the whole day, on your iPad the whole day, downloading things, listening to music. It kind of takes control. So what would you say about that?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's all about control, and just like all of the amazing things in life, like chocolate. Yeah, it's quite similar. And for me, my smartphone is amazing. We were just talking earlier about taking our smartphones and our iPads with us everywhere nowadays, and it becomes something that it's not even just a luxury anymore. It's something that is part of your life and that you do want to use. And in some ways, although you're kind of talking about this risk of getting addicted, in other ways, if you can get into that relationship with it where you can use it to enhance your life, you become so much more productive. You can work on the go. If you're waiting for a meeting and you've got 10 minutes, you can do something useful. So I actually think it's a real positive, actually, rather than a negative.
I think it depends on the person, doesn't it? Because if you are susceptible to getting distracted very easily, it can be a nightmare. Because there are people that are on it constantly. I mean, like, obviously with chocolate, once you eat too much, you're going to feel sick and you're going to know. But with sometimes with social networking, it's going to show exactly, it spots everything. But with some like social networking sites, people are on there for hours and they don't actually realise just how long they're spending on there. I mean, it's probably something that you're quite familiar with. Did you get me?
We've all got those friends on Facebook who are updating every status, and I have to say I switched off from a lot of people when we had the norovirus and all the oversharing that goes on. And I think the big thing is if you've got families and kids is having some rules in the house. So we don't have anything on after 9 p.m. And my daughter is not allowed to go near her phone until she's dressed and fed. She's 13.
How does she react to that? Is she quite
very well, actually.
Oh, yes. That's really good.
But we did have a wobbly point at which we had to bring in some rules. So and I think it's about learning your boundaries, and also there is that everybody complains about this, the tap tap tap. Yeah. But I have to say, I've used my phone probably today to find the studio with a map, to check on directions and all those kinds of things. So whereas before you'd have a big handbag full of maps and all these other things, we rely on them for so many things that I think the social part actually makes it more of a sort of like useful exercise, because who just wants a utility? You want to have a bit of fun. So if you can kind of chat with your mates when you're out and about, that's great.
Yeah. The other thing that kind of soaks up productivity is the alert systems, because you can be going on your phone to do something else. Like I do this all the time. I go on to look at my calendar and I end up looking at Twitter. But you have these little pop-ups with the numbers, like 4 unread messages, and that's actually really damaging. So often if you can turn those alerts off, so they're not distracting you and they're not grabbing your attention, then you can be more in control of the situation. That is a really good idea,
because for example, when a tweet comes out, I could be doing anything, and if I see someone's tweeted something especially about the show, or retweeted something, I just leave everything, whatever I'm doing, I just leave it immediately, and I go in and I check who it was, what they said, because it's like you don't get time to read it when it pops up, do you? So it is really distracting. I might have to turn that off. That's a really good tip, actually. What else? Tell us more. Any more top tips for us?
Make sure all the sounds are off. There's nothing worse than being woken up by a Facebook update in the middle of the night. I'm sure that's happened to everyone.
Yeah, definitely.
I suppose the other
Lisa, she's laughing over it. Has that happened to you?
It has done. It's true. And I do totally agree with what you're saying. It can totally take over your life. I do crack up. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. One's 19, one's 22. And if they are here, their phone is here. And they can never be without it. So it is amazing how it can take over your life. I like the idea about rules.
What about you, though? How are you with that?
Actually, even yesterday, I was cracking myself up about how much I do rely on my phone. But it is like how Eva was saying, if I want to know where somewhere is, I've got my maps right there on my phone. So that is one of the biggest advantages. If I need to know about, like I had to make a payment to somebody, I had my phone, I could make that payment straight away. You know, you don't have to be, oh my gosh, where's the nearest bank? Where's this one? You can do, there is so much that it can do. And it is right that it can enhance your life, but you have to be careful of that you don't let it take over your life. It is true.
Well, that's the thing with me, because I've managed to get a lot more done since I got my iPad, and I use it everywhere. I take it everywhere with me. I've resisted buying an iPhone. I still have my BlackBerry because, you know, I just don't know what I'll be like if I had an iPhone as well. So that's my way of kind of disciplining myself. But I also know, like, though, like, these things save us time, but we also end up doing a lot more. So it kind of, like, for me, it kind of balances out, because I'm still working just as hard as I would have done if I hadn't had the stuff, because you kind of compensate, don't you?
Well, the other thing is with talking about your iPad, because I noticed this earlier, you've got a really lovely cover.
Yeah.
And gadgets now, they can become kind of accessories. You can personalise them, and see, that's lovely. That's like having a handbag. And maybe one day it will replace.
I was quite excited when I got this, actually.
And maybe one day it will replace everything in your handbag, and you'll be able to use it. There are now electronic locking systems where you can use your phone to get into your garage. Perhaps you wouldn't set that up for your house, but it's okay for your garage. Of replacing maps, so you don't have to carry an A to Z. So maybe that's the future.
Yeah, definitely. How about you?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, on the positive side, that social media is helping so many people connect, and I blog with loads of other mums, and there are so many of them who have gone through depression, postnatal depression, bereavement, and they have been kind of buoyed up by the whole community supporting them. And it's been quite, you know, amazing to watch how people rally round. And they may meet up 2 or 3 times a year, but they've got that constant contact. So I think that's a really important part that people are often overlook when we see these stories of the celebrity spats and all this kind of stuff.
That's the thing, because it's like, that's a positive, obviously, you know, on that side of things. But then if someone has it in for you, or they're not very happy with you, then we've got all that negative side as well. So I mean, it's a balance anyway. But I mean, I'm all for it. But as I said, but we need to kind of control ourselves and make sure we're using it so it's working for us and not against us. But we're going to be speaking more about this after the break with our dating expert Andy Jones, who's going to be coming and talking about how the internet, how technology has affected relationships, how people meet, how they stay in touch. So he's going to be telling us a lot more. And if you have a question, you can give us a call on 020 7686 6300, and you can also tweet at Chrissy B Show. Join us after this.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back, and now let's talk to Andy Jones, who's a dating expert. Hello, Andy. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on the show.
It's great to have you on. So, you've been listening to our discussion about how great technology is and how great social networking sites are, but obviously it can be a bit different when it comes to dating, meeting people, maintaining relationships. So have you seen like maybe a change in the way people are dating lately?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're talking about how it affects our shopping habits, but even more important than that, these are matters of the heart, aren't they? So, I mean, we get far more involved in our love lives than we ever do with our shopping, etc. It's been an absolute game changer, the internet. Years ago, you might meet a girl in a nightclub or in the middle of the street and ask her out, and then you'd have to wait a few days to see her again. And now we can find out anything out about people straight away almost. I think we're almost addicted to snooping at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, there's very little mystery when it comes to dating these days. You can meet someone, and then even if they don't add you on Facebook, you can still often view their Facebook profile, see them out on other nights out, see how they dress, see what things they like to get up to, see what their friends look like.
It's quite scary, isn't it?
It's very strange.
Like, oh my God.
It's almost like just with a chance encounter with someone, you're not just welcoming someone into your life for that moment. They can then find out all kinds of things about you on the internet.
I kind of prefer the old-fashioned way of just meeting someone and sort of waiting for that phone call for a couple of days. And like
the excitement with romance comes in the anticipation, doesn't it? I mean, waiting for somebody to call, the thrill of waiting for the date, looking forward to the weekend. I think you get so deluged with so much information about somebody so quickly. I mean, you might meet a guy on a Friday night, for instance, and then he's texting you already. He might add you on Twitter. He might add you on Facebook. and then he might start emailing you if you swapped email details as well, and so you can get bombarded straight away with all this information from somebody. And in that way, in that sense, I think we can fall in love very quickly because we get to know people very quickly, but we can also fall out of love equally quickly because you can get sick of someone straight away.
Yeah, and plus, if you've got access to someone's Facebook account immediately, for example, you're going to go on there, probably check out all the photos, maybe past girlfriends, boyfriends. You're going to see all these. That's why you've got to be really careful what you post up on your Facebook page, because that could put a person off. They can see like a different side to you that maybe it's not really real. It's just what they've seen from photographs, and then they just get a different perception of you.
Absolutely. I mean, as we were talking about, we all just have completely brain dump. Everything we think and feel, we dump on the internet these days. And someone who's interested in you, that you might have gone on a couple of dates with, who really likes you, might trawl through your Facebook profile or your Twitter account and see something some offhand remark you made after you'd had a really bad day, or that you'd maybe come in from a pub and had a couple of drinks, and you'd said something, and I think, oh my word, I didn't know that you thought that, or oh my God, what a rude man, or etc. etc. And it's very, very hard. It's very, very hard to keep what you want private away from people that you've just met.
Yeah, and there's also got the issue of getting to know someone properly, because sometimes people are quite shy, I would say. They sometimes depend on social networking sites to really get to know someone, and maybe texting instead of actually talking to the person. So I don't think they really get to know a person well enough. They're shy, they're too shy maybe to speak face to face or have proper conversations.
I remember being about 15 years old and asking the first girl I ever asked out, and I rang up on a landline. I mean, people don't use landlines anymore. I rang up on a landline at a dad's house. Her dad answered the phone. It was the worst conversation I've had in my life. I had to wait for her to get on the phone, and then I had to ask her on the phone, the horror of actually speaking to someone. Now, these days, people they almost don't even meet people before they go on a date. It's almost like there's no interaction apart from online. There's no conversation. You might not know what someone sounds like, how tall they really are. And people are almost, basing their relationships on online. It's very, very immersive. But it's not very attached. I find it kind of the more long-lasting relationships are based with people that they meet and have a connection straight off physically.
What would you advise then for someone that is interested in someone? What would you advise on how to sort of approach them, get to know them, using maybe social networking sites, but with a balance? What would you advise?
Oh, what? So if you fancy someone in the office, you wanted to get to know
you wanted to.
There's nothing wrong with casually adding them on Facebook, but I think the groundwork's got to be done. Face to face. I think if you can keep eye contact with someone, keep good body posture, you don't have to have an outrageous sense of humour or be amazingly flirty, but just even just smiling, keeping good eye contact. I think he's really good at building bridges. And then maybe approach them online. Things like Facebook chat are quite good for an opening conversation. I think people invest far too much now in online communication, and because the problem is with online communication, if we had a conversation in a bar, we can have a laugh and a joke, and then you kind of forget about it 5 minutes later. But with online, you can read and reread and reread it again and again. And girls, I'm sorry to say, girls, they get their phones out and they go, "What did he mean by this? Why did he only put one kiss? Why is he said?
I don't think it's only girls that do that.
You've had experience.
I know guys who agonise about. Guys always like to sound very casual and funny and charming in messages, like they've just written that message in 30 seconds, when really they've agonised about this funny line and will she find that funny, and is that a bit too rude? Is that a bit too flirtatious or suggestive? And we do agonise about it.
I do reread my emails and things quite a few times before I send
it can get you in all kinds of trouble because you
can
start.
It has done in the past.
Because you can really like someone, and then you can read something back and it suddenly sounds sarcastic, or they're not that interested, or they're just busy and it sounds dismissive.
Yeah.
But hey, we've all done that.
I mean, I've got into trouble lots of times because of emails that I've sent, which I sent in a hurry. It's just work related. Sent in a hurry and then got completely misunderstood, and I just got myself into so much trouble. But then I had to learn to take my time. Don't write things in an email when I'm angry. So I've done that before. That's terrible. Right. So tell us about breakups then, because obviously it's a lot easier to break up with someone.
Well, people can take less responsibility with a breakup. They can just email or text now.
That's so cruel.
Or Facebook message and say, "I'm really sorry, it's not you, it's me," or whatever hackneyed cliche they're going to throw out there. And people can take less responsibility. But we lead such busy lives now. People have so much choice in everything they do. People can change their career very easily. People, especially in a busy place like London, people are moving house all the time. People don't feel like they have to settle down and put down any roots. We're marrying later and later in life, and we're buying houses later and later in life. So people want to chop and change their relationships. And whereas before, people would sit down for ages and have a long you know, torturous discussion about why they're going to break up, and people still do that. But because we're in a much more dating culture where people go on a couple of dates with someone and then they try somebody else and they go on a couple of dates with that person, people are much kind of, you know, into the kind of online and doing it very quickly.
And obviously one of the big problems with internet and relationships are affairs, because it's very, very easy to meet someone else. You can be in the same room as your partner and be cheating on them, be communicating with someone else. And actually we had someone on one of our shows once that was actually, she was married and she was already arranging to meet someone off in America, that she's fed up with her marriage, and she was
a long way to go, isn't it, to meet someone else, to go all the way to America?
Yeah, well, she met these guys. It was actually 3 of them she was corresponding with, while her husband was in the same room as her. However, he wasn't much of a good husband anyway, but that's not a reason to obviously...
She sounds quite a catch, this woman.
She's completely changed. She's a transformed character now.
Right.
But it's quite easy to do that.
Absolutely.
So it's very, I think it's very dangerous in that sense.
The internet is a window of what you could possibly have. You know, Facebook especially is a carousel of temptation. You're constantly looking at different faces and profiles, even without thinking or even without meaning to stray. You can be looking and think, oh, you know, so and so's lost a bit of weight. They look nice. Or oh my God, oh my word, my crush from high school is suddenly single. Or I didn't realise that person's divorced. Or I didn't realise that person's just moved back into town. I'll just message them and say hi, and then suddenly they go, let's meet for coffee, and you think, there's nothing wrong with going for coffee, I'm not doing anything. And then suddenly you're going for this, you're going to this kind of online, into the real world, and you're suddenly having this kind of betrayal without, and it feels like it's very, very, it doesn't feel like it, because it feels very, very baby steps. I'd always say with online, if it's something that you wouldn't necessarily want your partner to read, then you probably are breaking a barrier of trust.
That's a very good point, because sometimes you think, oh, it's just innocent, it's nothing, I'm just corresponding with an old school friend. But it's true, if you wouldn't want your partner to see it, don't do it, because that already shows there's something wrong with that. That's something, you're crossing a line there.
Absolutely, and this is why Facebook cited in so many cases of divorce. I think it's in about 1/3 of divorce cases. It's the problem is with online is it stays there. So if you might say something flirtatious or offhand in the office or in a bar or out in a nightclub, and your partner would never find out. But you can say something flirtatious or offhand in an instant messenger chat, a text message, a Facebook, an email, and that person could accidentally forward it to someone. That person could then have a row with you and say, well, exactly, or that person could have a row with you and then say, oh my God, look what this person said. Yeah. And so these things are always there to trip you up.
So what would be your top tips then, Andy, on how to use social networking effectively for even maintaining a relationship? What would you say?
First of all, put a decent picture of yourself out there. I know that we've got I know there must be lovely pictures of you out there, Chrissy. I know, but take time to take a decent picture. If you want to, if you're single and you want to get out there, you know, take a decent picture. Don't just crop one out of you out with your mates. You know, don't have a big hat or a pair of sunglasses on. Have one that people can see your lovely face. And put lots of interesting things about you on there. Put things that will provoke questions, things that you were genuinely interested in. Don't just put, I like socialising and reading books and having fun. You know, put what books you read, put the last film you went to, put where you'd like to go on a date. There's lots of brilliant dating websites now where they're entirely based around cultural interests. So if you're really interested in art or reading, you can go on online dating sites that are specifically for people who are really mad about books. There's another great website at the moment called Doing Something, where rather than looking for different people to go on dates with, you put what your ideal date would be, so water skiing or something, and then you find other people like that. So so rather than trawling through, you know,
that sounds a lot easier, doesn't it? Actually,
well, yeah, exactly. Trawling through reams and reams and reams of profiles of people you don't necessarily like. You just look for different things that people have said that they like doing.
That's really interesting. But I wonder if you could help me with one of these questions from a viewer. Then she says here, when my husband gets home, all I want is a nice chat and to spend some quality time with him. And all I get is an irritated, grumpy man that doesn't say much. I get so frustrated that we normally end up arguing, and he just goes off and spends loads of time online doing God knows what. I'm getting sick and tired of this and don't think he appreciates me. What would Chrissy do? And I'll just give my input first, and then we'll get Andy's take on it. Now, you're saying, like, as soon as he gets home, all you want to do is have a nice chat and stuff. Well, from experience and from, like, knowing my own husband, when he gets home, all he wants to do is eat and rest a bit before he talks. And he doesn't always, I don't know how this is.
I was going to say that if you come straight through the door and you've had any kind of office job, you get deluged with question.
Yeah.
And you get it from all sides. And then to come through the door, even if you're asking him lovely, kind questions like, how's your day? How did that meeting go? Did you enjoy your lunch? I just don't want to speak to anybody. Just be quiet. I just want some downtime.
I used to get quite offended, I would say, when my husband used to do that to me, until I got to know him and actually say, look, he just needs a bit of time, he needs a bit of me time, he needs to rest, he wants food. And once he's eaten, he's fine and he's had a bit of a rest, then he gets chatty. But if, for example, as soon as, in your case, as soon as he walks through the door, you're already like bombarding him with questions, he's already stressed probably, and he's not going to want to talk.
Well, you get defensive, don't you? The moment you get asked a barrage of questions, you already get your guard up. I think, as you said, let him get it out of his system. Even rather than asking him things about work, especially if work's going terribly, the last thing I want to talk about is work if it's going badly. So talk about things that he's genuinely interested in.
See, with women, I think with myself, I like to talk about things when something's bothering me. But I notice with my husband and a lot of men, they just like to sort of not talk about it and just focus on something else. We're quite different in that respect, aren't we? No,
absolutely, absolutely. All the better for it, I think. I mean, with that kind of thing, sometimes it's just nice, especially with nice summer evenings like this, just go out for a walk. I know that sounds a bit lame in some ways, but you suddenly haven't got the distraction of the TV, you're suddenly not thinking about work, and it's quite nice. You just instantly clear your head.
I would also, for this viewer that's written in, I would actually also change your tactics. So when he does come in, why don't you do something different for him? If you're home, for example, sounds like you're home before him, just why don't you make a nice special dinner for him, candles, something that he's not expecting, and then just let him relax and enjoy the evening. And then, like, if you want Francis talking, then just try something different instead of the usual thing. Because obviously, I think if you make his homecoming really special and, like, you know, enjoyable, he's not going to want to be online. He's not going to want to be on the internet the whole time. He's going to enjoy being with you and having a conversation with you. And I think that's important for both sides, for husbands to do the same and partners to do the same.
It's not necessarily about regular time. You haven't got to speak to each other every single night of the week. If you have quality time, even if it's just twice a week where you go out and do something really nice, not just sit there and talk about bills and EastEnders and what other kind of mundanity things that people talk about. If you talk about things that, you know, you go out and do something really special, go out, you know, just if you haven't got lots of money, nice walk. If you can afford to splash out a bit, go out for a nice meal. Go to a film that you both really want to do. Go on somewhere that you went for your first date. Go to something that's got a bit of nostalgia, and it takes you to a place where you felt really good about yourself. Because if he's really struggling at the moment with work and he's a bit stressed out, that might be why he's retreating to online, because he's talking to people that won't ask him about work, where he can just talk about, I don't know, football or other things he's interested in.
Just can have an empty mind.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you so much for your advice. Thank you, ladies, for the great advice as well that you gave. So we have run out of time. We're going to go to a break now, and after the break, we're going to be joined by Chris Brown, who's brought on a very special guest of his very own. So join us after this.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back, and let's go straight to our self-development clinic with Chris Brown and a very, very special guest. Hello, Chris.
Yes, hello,
and who have
Chrissy.
you brought on today with you?
I have brought along here Victor Wilson. And Victor Wilson, who is it to me? He's my father-in-law.
Wow.
Yes. That's come out now,
You're
isn't it?
scared of your father-in-law, obviously, because you
I'm going to play it real
show.
straight today. You know, everything I say, you know, hey, it's my wife's father.
Okay, so Victor, what do you do?
Chris is a great son-in-law. The first time I saw him, I fell in love with him.
Oh.
I knew he was just right for my daughter.
Oh. You didn't bring out the shotgun or anything?
No, I did not have to. You asked what do I do?
Yes.
I am a clinical supervisor. I work in a major hospital, and I do clinical training with those folks who would address the psychosocial needs of patients and medical staff.
So your daughter went in the same line of work, didn't she? Similar, quite similar.
Very similar, very similar.
Who's been on the show, by the way? That's Chris's wife, who's been on, and she's been, you know, talked about health and stuff like that, didn't she?
Yeah, I think we are in the caring business. We realize that human beings need care from birth to the time we depart this world. And it's very important to love and care for people.
Yeah, definitely. I know Chris does that every week because he comes on to help our viewers, you know, develop self-development, develop as people. So what did you both have to share with us tonight? Very exciting.
Well, it's funny because we were listening to the guest earlier on, and we had a discussion earlier on today, and we were talking about the whole idea of media and internet, and you was mentioning about distractions. But obviously there's the pros and there's the cons. There's, as we was talking about, the mind, as Vic just mentioned, the mind. Active, inactive. Sometimes there's a lot of things that are quite lazy, which are inactive, which I would call sitting there watching the brain drain machine, as I mentioned before, which the brain drain machine is the TV, but not when you're watching Chrissy B Show. That's not that time, right?
Glad you clarified that.
Right, okay. And sometimes you watch a show and say, well, in a minute we'll have so-and-so on. In a minute we'll have, and before you know it, 3 hours have gone and you're sitting there watching a show that comes on after or whatnot, all right? That's inactive. Active is a sense of we can learn quite a lot from the internet. IT isn't that bad, but it depends on the individual, how it's used.
Yeah.
In saying that as well, I was doing a bit of research today, and I'm going to pass this on to Victor in a minute because I was doing my research today. And do you know, in Trinidad, the island of Trinidad, the government has made it that everybody under the age, up to the age of 18, is compulsory they give away free computers to everyone, right?
Really?
If you're a pensioner, which as a woman is 60, a man 65, you get free computers as well. Now, why would they do that? Obviously, we're talking about active, we're talking about progression, education, what it can actually do for you. So it's down to the individual what they actually use it for. And I think, well, imagine, we're talking about, what, 18 up to there? In between there, you don't get the Mac, okay? Right? You have to wait till you're about 65 or 60 and you get the Mac then. But you had a different perspective on it about, we was talking about in the US how they use the internet as well and the benefits. Or,
Yes,
so.
yes. The internet is here to stay. It's the brand new thing. It's a brave new world, and it's here to stay. It's a life changer. It's a game changer in the US, especially in the field of education. I think in just a couple of years, in 5 years' time, students will not have to go to a university and spend time there because they would be doing classes online. They would be getting their degrees online, graduation, attend the university, alma mater, to walk through the line. But a whole lot of work is going to be done through the internet. It's going to be cost effective. It's going to give students that sense of groundedness in their environment, so they wouldn't have to travel from one place to the other. I think it's a game changer.
Right.
Chris talked about active and inactive. And the way I look at it, the way I think about it is, you know, the internet, is it a tool or is it a toy?
Right.
You know, and as a tool, it's a powerful tool. You know, you fly an aircraft from the United States of America across the pond to England, and a lot of the work is done through the internet and computers. You know, it's a powerful tool, but you put it in the hands of an irresponsible person or a person who
It's not disciplined, maybe?
Yes, and it becomes a dangerous thing. It becomes a toy that meanders along the way of life, and we wake up and we realize we are using it to avoid that which we should face and be responsible for.
It's just, it's so hard sometimes to strike that balance. For some people it's quite easy. They're quite disciplined anyway, and they know their limits and they know where they need to stop. But for others, you can't sort of ban them from using the internet. Like if you're a parent and you see that your children are on there constantly and they're wasting time, it's quite hard to put that into place for them because they don't see where they need to stop.
Right.
What advice would you give to parents, do you think, both of you, that would help maybe to not control their children, but help them in a sense to get the most out of the internet without going too far?
Yeah, I think the overall approach to education, growing a human being from a young person to an adult, a responsible adult, is to have that kind of idea that we need to be responsible for ourselves. We live in a world today in which we are way in over our heads, you know, so many choices, freedom, how do we manage it? And it has to come from within. So as a parent, you have this macro perspective that I'm growing this individual to be a responsible person. And each family, I would think, as each family vary, the parents would know what kind of disciplines need to be in place for this specific child in this environment that will teach them, give them those steps of internal discipline. Sometimes you have to be a little bit drastic. Sometimes you can use carrots and sticks, or whatever would work for a family. But each in the family, because we are individuals, would have to pick it up from there.
And that's why the relationship, we're running out of time. They're telling me that I've run out of time already, but I know this is something that Now you made me forget what I was going to say. It was an important point. Now, see, when people wave their hands at me, I just forget what I'm going to say. That's it. That's why it's very important for parents to spend that time with their children, to know them, to know what makes them tick, to know what, you know, they need to have that relationship with their children, or else they're not going to, or else they're not going to know how to set boundaries, and also their children won't respect them. If they try all of a sudden, they hardly have any communication with them, all of a sudden they come down, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. That child's not going to respect you. So it's very important to maintain that relationship. When are you going back to the States?
I'm going to spend 10 days with Chris and leave on the 27th.
I might have to bring him back on because I want to hear more from him. Because this wasn't enough time, so I have to go now because I'm going to get into trouble. But thank you so much, Victor, for joining us and speaking to us. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
And we will see you again next time on the show. But if you do want more information, you can go to this website, chrissybshow.tv. Join us next time. Bye-bye for now.